So I'm here with Andy Rhodes. He's General Manager of the Internet of Things at Dell. Andy, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Welcome, and really happy to be here.
So how big an opportunity is the Internet of Things for Dell?
Well, that's a great question in the market in general. You know, everyone's throwing around numbers, 20 billion connected devices up to 100 billion connected devices. It almost seems like each analyst firm is competing for the bigger numbers. But, it's going to be billions of dollars and, trillions of dollars to the economy. But from a Dell perspective, the reason we really like it is if you think about all these connected things in the world, and there are going to be billions of them, we're convinced of that, they are all going to create data. In fact, data is really part of the value of the Internet of Things. It's what data you collect and what you do with it. And that data needs to be collected, stored, and analyzed. In fact, we always say here that data stored is a cost center for businesses and data analyzed is the profit center for a business. So the opportunity for Dell is huge because we are an IT infrastructure company. We supply and help our customers build out the infrastructure to harvest that data and then go and analyze it, which is where I said where the profit for a lot of the businesses is.
Yeah, okay, so it's a big deal. Let's talk about some of the current buzzwords in the industry. You've got artificial intelligence, machine learning, a lot of excitement about the potential of that. How much overlap or how much impact will that have on the Internet of Things?
Yeah, it's funny. When I think about artificial intelligence and deep learning and, predictive maintenance at the edge, people call them buzzwords. I think in IoT, they're just a reality and a part of the Internet of Things. Without them, what is the Internet of Things? So if you think about, this whole notion that this data comes out of a thing and it needs to get analyzed and then you do something with that data, then the whole analysis is about the whole learning experience of that data. And then, of course, the way the world works is that data points are never taken in isolation. So, a great example is building management. Today, there is a huge amount of data collected in buildings. It's just completely siloed and isolated, and one data point doesn't know that the other data point exists, and one data point, is not correlated with the other, and that's where the value is. So if you think about, come back to that building example, if there's a fire in the building, the fire detection will be collecting lots of data and will do something. It will maybe call the fire brigade, maybe turn the sprinklers on. But the people might be trapped in the building, or the lights might turn off. And really, when you have a fire in a building, the first thing you actually want to do is turn off the air conditioning system because fires love fresh oxygen, and air conditioning systems pump in fresh oxygen. So this deep learning and artificial intelligence is all about correlating these data points together. Fire in building happens, HVAC switches off, sprinklers go on, fire brigade is called. Doors to let people out are opened, but other windows are closed and lights are on so people can find the exit. Well, programming all of that logic, in the building example might be able to be done by humans, but as data changes and affects those equations, you have to have artificial intelligence to go and do that in many, many other scenarios. And a lot of that has to be done at the edge of the network. It has to be done in almost real time. For it to be useful for the business. So yes, there are buzzwords in the industry, like IoT is a buzzword, because I think really it's just a set of use cases with some common threads. But I think AI is absolutely a massive part of it. And then if you think about, thousands of devices connected together, each of one of those operating independently on the data it receives, but then aggregating that data in the back end of the data center and doing deep learning on that data so that you can see how thousands or hundred thousands of different things perform in a certain environment is an absolute reality that a lot of our customers are implementing today.
Yeah, okay, so they're actually key to realizing the full value of the Internet of Things is you need that intelligence capabilities. Let's talk about what else is exciting and out there in terms of new technologies for the Internet of Things. Are there other technologies that are really going to push the envelope?
I think there's a big place for blockchain in the IoT in the future. Again, that is an emerging technology. I think it's very exciting in the financial industries today, and a lot of retail and cold supply chain are starting to use it, because you obviously get that continuous, non-disrupted record of transactions. So that's the one that sort of we are most excited about here at Dell. And I think that part of the problem is, as you layer on more and more of these new technologies, it becomes a daunting task just to get started on a project. And, you know, a lot of our customers are like, where do I start, you know, and how do I get started? And, you know, and then I'm sure we're going to talk about the security issue, because, you know, security is a key concern, as much as what is the business ROI is also a key concern. So I think blockchain will be a great technology just because it lends itself to high transactions and understanding the transactions and challenges that old database paradigm. But I would also say, like, you know, hey, you don't need to put all of these technologies together to start IoT projects and start this sort of digital transformation inside of your company and get value out of a lot of those projects, you know, without putting all of it together.
Yeah, right. You don't have to be right at the cutting edge.
And you know, to get value, I mean, being at the cutting edge, well, there's bleeding edge and then there's cutting edge. You know, I think you don't have to always be there. I think a lot of what IoT is about is different pieces of the organization coming together like they never have before. And so there's a whole cultural piece here that sort of often gets overlooked, which is, how does the operations people in a company work with the IT people, and who does what, and who actually owns this IoT project? And, you know, that's something that we're passionate about in Dell, because, you know, we often hear our customers tell us as they go through this journey of digital transformation that the IT is the easy part. It's like bringing the business along. It's understanding the operational impacts to the business. It's changing the fundamental business processes, or sometimes even the revenue or business model that our customers are in. That takes time. That takes a lot of, you know, the people side of this. And, you know, I just think it's an area that a lot of customers only understand when they get, you know, halfway through or towards the end of a project, and it's a big stumbling block.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. So when you look across the economy, Andy, where do you think the Internet of Things is having the most impact today, and where do you think it'll have the most impact in the future?
Impact happens everywhere. I think every business can utilize it either to transform their businesses or to make them more efficient. So I will answer the question, but I, you know, the context for me is there are usually 3 or 4 major business benefits to IoT projects. The first, and by far the one that most projects start, is about gaining efficiencies within your company. How do I use IoT to make better machines, save more fuel on my fleet of trucks, you know, reduce the energy consumed in my buildings, in my data center, whatever it is. So, or, you know, in manufacturing, how do I make my processes better so I can increase the yield of whatever my output is? In smart agriculture, how do I get a higher yield of my product? So that's still, for me, an efficiency gain within the customer environment. The second major business model that we see is enhancing the product. So how do I use IoT to make a better product? So, I mean, if you're, you know, a tractor company, how do I embed intelligence into my tractor so that, you know, it can self-drive over the field? It knows exactly, you know, what to spray at which part of the field, you know. And so the product now, the tractor, is a better tractor than, you know, the what the competitors have. And then the third, and this is where it gets super exciting, is net new revenue models as a consequence of all of this technology. So we have customers that were in the business of, you know, building, let's use elevators. You know, they were building steel cages that move people up and down buildings. And now they're transforming they have the aspirations to transform and be in the business of providing rides per floor per person on a OpEx model versus a CapEx-based model. But then they can now go into different revenue streams, like if they own the elevators rather than sell them, then they can, go into revenue streams like digital signage, and they can be in the advertising business. So you think about companies that were making steel cages for people, could in the future be in, competing against Google and Facebook for eyeballs and ad revenue. So that's the context of, disruption and usage. I think the ones that, we're focused on, and the most impact is oil and gas. Have a huge amount to do. Like the digital oil field, I think is really big right now. And how do you collect all of this data from the oil rigs so that you can do predictive maintenance? If oil is at $50 a barrel, that's probably a good time to go do your maintenance. If it's up at $120 a barrel, then you just want your machinery pumping out oil as fast as you can. Well, IoT technology can help determine when you do your maintenance cycles based on the price of oil. That's just a great example. So I think oil and gas or sort of energy sector in general is just prime, and it's, high tech, really enhances that efficiency and that new revenue model. Manufacturing is the other huge one, because, everybody's looking for that edge on efficiency gains. And then I think smart agriculture is another great one. But we actually see more of use cases that cross multiple industries. So for instance, monitoring high value assets and doing predictive maintenance on them spans many, many different verticals. You can do that in manufacturing, you can do it in oil and gas, you can do it in energy, you can do it in retail, supply chain. So a lot of these cross many of those traditional verticals. The other one that I think has huge, huge potential in the world is everything around retail, and the supply chain of food. In fact, we waste 30% as a human race. We waste 30% of all food that we produce. And in the developed world, and I know there's a finer line between the developed and the developing world, so I don't like to use that terminology, but let's say in big economies like the US, the UK, Germany, most of that food waste is consumers throwing it away. But in some of the emerging countries, a lot of that is wasted through the production cycle, and a huge amount is wasted through the transportation of food. It's getting stuck in the wrong place. If it needs to be cold and frozen, then the supply chain sometimes unfreezes it and it gets wasted. Well, just think about how sensors and collection of data can solve that problem. Now you know exactly, and blockchain will play in here nicely as well, but now you know exactly where the food was produced. If it's been transported across the world, is it still at the right temperature? If that temperature is falling, you can go and proactively do something about it. If your truck breaks down and it's got frozen food in the back, I know about that. I will know about it before it happens, and I can go, as the transport company, go and make actual decisions and take action to go save that. So I think it's sort of everywhere, but we're excited about energy. We're excited about transportation and cold supply chain. We're really excited about smart agriculture and how that can help increase yields, and then predictive maintenance across all of those types of industries.
Yeah, okay, some great examples there, Andy. Is there any Dell's customers are using the Internet of Things in particularly surprising ways? Anything that's caught your eye as particularly novel that other companies might learn from?
I'm in the business of helping customers implement this. So novelty, I find them all novel basically because a lot of them are new. I'll give you some examples of non-novel ones, but they really sort of capture for me the essence of an IoT project in a use case. We have a customer of ours called the Weir Group. They're a large engineering company based out of Scotland, and one of their divisions does heavy mining equipment. And so think about this as really, big pumps that are used underground in the mine, and they're putting sensors on all of this equipment to really do asset monitoring and predictive maintenance. Because if you think about, their business and their customers and their customer satisfaction, if one of these big pumps breaks down a mine and it's pumping huge amount of ore and materials in a gold mine or a diamond mine, just think about how much money is lost each day that pump is down. And then, we in the industry, they call it, roll a truck. So then it breaks down, their customers call them, it's broken, and then they have to put someone in a truck to go fix it with the right parts. Well, mines aren't in convenient places like cities and near storage depots. They're in places like, Kalgoorlie, Australia, in the Western Desert. They're in mines in Peru. So it's not really a man with a van or a lady with a van. It's a helicopter. And if you show up with the wrong part, then it's another helicopter ride. And helicopter rides are very expensive. And the people that fix this stuff, obviously are very skilled and therefore expensive. Now, by having sensors on all of this mining equipment and doing that predictive maintenance, they will know well in advance before it fails, and they will know which part to take, and they can schedule the right person at the right time, or they can tell the customer, hey, we think you're going to get another 3 weeks worth of use out of this, or we can fix it now and your downtime is less. So that for me just epitomizes, what the Internet of Things is all about. The other thing, a complete side note, none of our customers call it the Internet of Things, right? They don't call their projects that. They talk in terms of these use cases. How do I make my pumps more efficient? How do I do predictive maintenance? How do I make my my farming more industrial or smarter? So the word Internet of Things can obviously be used to wash the environment. And this sort of, you talked about buzzwords. And so we actually go in, and the first thing we do is we ask customers, do you have a use case in mind, and what is it? Coming back to your question though, because I always like to answer questions. One of the novel ones, I don't think it's novel, but it's catchy, is the Internet of Cows. And so we've worked with a customer in India, and we basically have helped them put sensors on their cows. And now they can understand where those cows move in the field, what nutrients they have, and they can tie that back to milk yields. And so they can actually increase their milk yield by using sensors and data on cows. So, Internet of Cows has always been my favorite.
Nice. Okay. A lot of news about security recently in the broader IT context, and a lot of high-profile breaches. In your view, at a high level, what does the industry need to do to keep the Internet of Things secure? What's the kind of 101 in security for the IoT?
Yeah, the first thing I always say is be paranoid but not paralyzed. Because the reality is that security on any IT, not just, the Internet of Things opens up a whole new surface area of attack that we can talk about. But, you could have said the same in banking, 20 years ago. And the ones that got paralyzed and not paranoid were the ones that either came in very, very late or were not there by the time they sort of realized that they had to go off and make the transformation. So that's the first message. The second I would say is that there are so many companies out there that can help customers with this security aspect. Dell and our partners been one of those, and so we treat it as the ultimate sort of inhibitor, and therefore the first place that we go and help customers to look at. And so that's the first thing. Paranoia is always good. Only the paranoid survive, I think, is what Andy Rhodes from Intel was quoted as saying. But paralyzed is you're not going to do anything, and we think there's so much business value in IoT. So get over that and get busy trying to understand it. As I said, once customers understand that, the second biggest inhibitor is what's my return on investment, and how do I go quantify that to my CEO and my CFO. But coming back to security, I think the first thing to do is really understand that larger surface area of attack. What have you just opened yourself up to as you've added new sensors, new elements into the environment? Do you understand how they operate? Do you understand how they can be hacked? Do you understand what data they're gathering? Do you understand that piece? And is it part of the security architecture? Often, again, I talked about these natural divides in company between where IT naturally used to start and stop and where operations people started and stopped. Well, throw that paradigm away. That's completely blurred now. IT has to help reach all the way to the thing and the sensor or whatever it is, and the operations technology needs to reach all the way back into the data center. And the only way to do that without conflict is to start these projects together and work on them as one sort of project team. And then you have IT really understanding the thing and how it can be hacked. Or in many cases, the operations people already know how to do security on those things, right? I mean, you think about, oil rigs, you think about, factories, there are people that live, breathe, die by the security in those environments. They're just different than how IT does security. So I think one of the things that we always say is bring those two teams together and really understand, from day one, how you're going to go and architect security into the solution from the onset of the project. And then I think a lot of it is, a lot of the same things occur. How do you protect data at rest? How do you look at roots of trust, of everything that you've put in the environment? And then I'll change the language because it's a little bit colorful, but, Jason Shepard on our team who runs our strategy and all of our alliances says a lot of, the breaches are because people that just do dumb stuff on the network. So how do you manage your network for security, and how do you take that back into the things as a separate layer in the operation? So roots of trust, using things like, TPM on specific silicon and hardware, looking at data in rest and data, moving across the network. Then it comes into who are the right partners that understand this. Companies that we work with, like ForgeRock and others, they really understand all of these different aspects, and we partner with them, to make sure that, customer by customer, we architect those elements into their solution.
So Andy, we talked a bit about how much detailed data is being collected by the Internet of Things and how that leads into artificial intelligence, etc., and deep learning. Should we be concerned about the privacy implications of that, and how do we safeguard privacy in that context?
Yeah, I think there's two elements to this. One is consumer privacy, and that is hotly debated in the industry. And then on the other side, there is corporations and what they do with your data on privacy there. And I think, a lot of obviously big corporations are B2C, and so they have to take that incredibly seriously because, essentially what they're doing is collecting even more data on people or businesses or processes. So yeah, I think it's a critical element to it. But I don't think it's wildly different than the privacy and privacy laws that govern it. I think where the legislation has to go off and improve is in areas where sort of the digital life sort of becomes pervasive in our lives. And so these are consumer examples much more than business examples. But your house becomes smart. Everything from your Amazon Echo to your door, to your Wi-Fi, to, I've even heard people have smart beds, and so they've got sensors in their beds to see how they're sleeping and other things. And you get divorced. Who owns the data, right? What do you do with the data? Is that data yours? Is it a collective in the house? Does it belong to the manufacturer of each of those discrete machines? So I think there's going to be some really interesting legislation on the consumer side. I think on the commercial side, businesses just need to show, it's very serious. They need to show customers and be really transparent of what are they doing with that data, how does it get consumed, and how has it been used, for the gain of that individual corporation. I think that's one. And then obviously it goes back to, and you do have all that data, it comes back to the security thing. If you collect data on people and things and processes, then you have the inherent responsibility to secure that and ensure it's not breached. But I think transparency is one way to really go off and solve this problem. And I think we need a lot more legislation as we evolve, especially on the consumer side.
Okay, got it. So final question, Andy. Looking ahead across the next 5 years, what do you see happening in the Internet of Things? What do you see as the big trends? What will change, essentially?
Well, I think we're going to move from huge hype to mass deployments. If you think about it today, customers are all, I think, very aware of it now. They are talking about what does it mean to me and how do I go do it. But there's not as many projects out there in the world as there is hype, articles, press, all of that sort of stuff. And so I think we're going to move from a sort of a cycle of, hey, this is really important, and what does it mean to me, to I get it, I know I need to start, I'm going to go start doing things. I also think that a lot of these projects are built in silos today. A company could have 10 IoT type projects, but they're all discrete. And so the other thing that I think is going to start to emerge is companies will be like, okay, well, how do I build an IT architecture for multiple different IoT projects within my company, versus treat everyone as a siloed project? Because as I said, that sometimes the benefit is aggregating the data and looking at it across multiple vectors that you never even thought of before. And then the third that I'm passionate about and I really hope accelerates is the internal politics within companies and understanding how to bring the right teams together to go build these projects and make them happen faster. So how does OT and IT, as the major two collaborators, and again, no one calls themselves OT, so operations technology, so we know that. It's just a generic term. So how do factory managers come together with IT? How do farmers come together better with IT? How do the people that own the mining equipment or the tractors or the deeps or whatever it is come together with their IT counterparts and work together, because they both have unique skills here that are needed to make these successful. And then also what we've seen is, again, continuing this theme of the tech becomes the easy part. How do you ensure your sales force is bought in from day one? A lot of this transformation is moving customers' products from selling a product, a physical product, to selling, a thing as a service. And so you need to retrain sales, you need to retrain marketing. The CFO needs to be involved. She or he, has got a big input here into what does that mean to our bottom line? What does it mean to the way that we do our financials, over a transformational period? So I think this other third one is, how does the organization, how does the company change to go take full advantage of it? And if they're still in the same silos 5 years from now that they are today, then they're not going to make perfect, breeding grounds for successful IoT projects.
Okay, so human resources got a big job ahead of them by the sounds of it. Yeah. Great. Andy, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate that. Good interview. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot.